Okay, so this here is the gear drive, and that's the main shaft, right, which is connected to the actual core. This is the back gear transfer drive itself, which by default is disconnected from this unless the back gear is engaged using this thing here, and then once it's engaged in there, it's actually spinning, which is the lower speed setting of the whole lathe. Now ideally what happens is this here is the motor pulley, and it has this little thing here in the back, but it slips, right? So it's made to just spin like this, free and slip. See, in the back it's not there. So when it's in direct drive, so high speed, the pulley and the shaft supposed to turn together as one unit like this, which it doesn't right now. And when it's in back gear drive, it's supposed to be completely spinning on itself, such that when you engage the back gear over there, then the pulley itself spins this little gear, which spins this thing, which in turns goes there and transfers power to the main shaft. But it does it at a completely different speed. So you can see once I turn the main shaft, you can see that the shaft itself spins a lot slower than the actual pulley, which means that the motor spins really, really fast, but the core itself still spins really, really slow. So that's the back gear drive, which is what makes it go slower. Now the problem here is this. For this to work on direct gear drive, this needs to be engaged with the core. And the way it does that is it has here on the shaft, it has here this little slot which has a special pin that engages, and there's this bushing. So this guy has these two little knobs, and they fit into the slot, and then they kind of spin this. And then here, let me see if I can point into this way. So here there's 4 slots. This one and this one are made for retainer rings to just hold all of this, but these 2 bigger slots are made for this ball here, and the other side, which I made a special piece for. There used to be another ball, but it fell out. So I threaded a ball plunger into it. So it's made for these 2 guys to slip on from either direct drive or back gear drive. So when it goes out, it disengages from this thing here, and then it re-engages into this. When it goes in, then it's completely loaded on this. Now the actual issue here is, the problem is very simple. If I go in here and I put this back in, and then I put this guy here, if I put the retainer ring in, I'm not going to do it right now, but if I did put the retainer ring in, you see there's almost like 3 millimeters worth of space for this to go back and forth and back and forth. While this guy, even if it's secure on the further away slot, can only go as far as the retainer ring. So what happens is, this thing here, it flies backwards, and the connection between between these 2 blocks and the back of these 2 blocks here, it's very, very loose. It basically like slips off of the tip of this thing, and because it's rounded here and it's not like perfect square, it pushes this thing out, and then it immediately slips out of front gear and into back gear. So ideally what I wanted to do is I wanted to create, like if I move this up to here, to the retainer ring level, and then here you can see this tiny little gap, right? I wanted to create a spacer that just covers this tiny little gap here, such that it will always be front and engaged into the core. So what I did is I took 3 millimeter washer that I had, and I opened it up with this little guy here. Right? So I opened it up to the right diameter, and then what I did is I threaded it on just a bolt, and I put that on the drill and ran it on the bend center, on the belt center, just until it got to the right width so it doesn't hit the gear there. And then what I want to get to the point is, ideally, if I put it together, is this little guy here is just sitting right over here. Yeah, so if it's too fat, I'm gonna have to sand it down a bit, but like this, and then this guy comes right over here. So this little space is now covered, and I might not be able to slip the retainer ring there. It might be too fat. I have to check. And then sand it off a bit, just a tiny bit, so it's snug, and then that will cover it. So I'll put that together and I'll give it a shot. Yep, so I put this here. So the only problem that I can see is that this gear here is only holding 3/4, which I think is fine because this is low gear setting. Low speed settings. As you can see, I put the retainer ring here back on, and now it's really snug. I mean, it's nice and loose. It actually has enough tension that every now and then this is pushing enough that it spins, but I think once it's fast enough, that's definitely not going to be an issue. Yeah, so that looks good. So all I have to do now is just put the bull pin here back in, this little jiggy guy, and then ride this guy back on, and then put the outer retainer ring in, and then see if that works. Okay, so for the moment of truth, I put all of this back in with the outside retainer ring. This thing, which used to bounce back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, is super snug. The retainer ring itself is nice and tight. As it stands right now, it's engaged. So you can see here, these two dots that I marked, they're engaged in. So if I turn this, you see it spins the whole headstock, so that's high speed. If I'm gonna pull it out, like this, now it's gonna, this pulley is gonna spin completely independent of the core, and then I can just engage the back gear. And then that would spin a lot slower. So I'm gonna test both of these. What do you want? Are you not like disengage? There we go. It doesn't like the little fatness here. So disengage and engage might be a bit of a problem. I might have to make it a bit smaller. Here, I'll show you. Is there a way to turn the light on? This here is a bit too fat for the teeth of this thing to sink into the teeth of, it's not covering all the way to the bottom, so I might have to actually shave it a bit. Otherwise it might cause damage on the gears in back drive. But the reality is that I really care more about the front drive more right now. Here, I'll engage it and show you. I'll try to engage it anyway. Yeah, so now it's engaged. Let's see if I can show you. Jesus, too much light. See right there, tiny space between them, and some of it is not 100%. See, it becomes a bit wider in some areas, and then tiny. Yeah, this part here, I'm gonna have to work on this tiny. It becomes just a bit too close. But for now, I think it'll be fine. Okay, so disconnected from main gear, and now comes the moment of truth. I'm just gonna align these two guys together, push it back in, so now it's in main mode. Get rid of all of this stuff, move anything that's away, put the cable back in, and right here, come here, baby. All right, there we go. Okay, so it's set on the highest speed, and which is up until now thrown it out of front direct drive all the time. And we'll take a step back from here, and let's see, 1, 2, 3. Nice. It's not slipping, it's not making any noises. Really cool. Really cool. Turn this baby off. And pull it out of direct gear and engage the back gear drive. Find the right slot where it can engage easier. There we go. And now it's on back gear. So it's spins significantly slower. And as you can see, the back gear here is rattling a little bit. Now this rattling is basically this. Rattling around this. Right, it's because of the wear of those two blocks that used to be there. And I don't think that's something I can fix easily. But yeah, lady's fixed. Sweet.